Good morning, friends, family, and people of the internet. I hope that you are having a wonderful day. I know that it's a little dark in here, but it's like 6:45 in the morning and the sun hasn't come out yet. And I have tried to record this video now like 3 times and it just hasn't been coming out the way I want it to. And I don't know why. I kind of am like in kind of maybe like a seasonal depression, kind of like funk thing. My energy is really low. I don't know if you can tell right now, it's Monday and I'm like zonked and I slept a normal amount of hours and stuff. So I'm just kind of like in this weird place and holiday season, and it's been kind of hard this year with the holidays and just family stuff going on. And so, yeah, I don't know. But anyways, I'm going to try and do this again. I think I'm going to try and make it shorter and maybe make like multiple parts instead of doing just like one straight go. I think it was just 1 too long, and 2, I started rambling a lot and I didn't like that, although I ramble a lot in all my videos. But anyways, I started my channel to like start a dialogue, to start a conversation, to let people know that they're not alone in difficult things, but specifically with miscarriage. And I want to help others. I know other women on YouTube have helped me. I think that there's this strong sense of community, but I think that there's a little bit of a barrier between people who have experienced a miscarriage or know someone very close that has experienced a miscarriage compared to like those who just know about miscarriage. And what I've heard and experienced and found from myself and others is there are certain things that are being said to people that are experiencing miscarriage that just aren't helpful. I got the idea to do this video several months ago, and then my friend Nev, who was recently diagnosed with leukemia, wrote a Facebook post kind of with like the popular things he was hearing people say and like how they actually made him feel and an alternative way of saying it. And so, for example, like be positive. Nev's a pretty positive person, and so like it kind of makes him feel like a slap in the face because he is always positive. And it doesn't, instead of triggering positivity inside of him, it just like triggers him to shut down a little bit more. And an alternative he suggested is, instead of focusing on, or now that we focused on the negative, let's focus on the positive. And so that's kind of how I want to start this video / like little series is, I have 3 things written down that have either been said to me or I've heard are like frequent things said to people with miscarriage. And I have a few alternative things to say, but some of them I just have, one of them I just have why you shouldn't ask that question, not necessarily an alternative way to ask. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these. I'd love to hear other things or other alternatives that you may have to what I'm saying below. And yeah, let's jump into it. So the first one I have is it's super common. That has been said to me, that I know other women who have heard that, and it's true, right? Like 1 in 5 pregnancies end in miscarriage, whether that's a missed miscarriage, whether that's a chemical pregnancy, whether that's a molar pregnancy, whether that's an ectopic pregnancy. Like there's a lot of ways a pregnancy can end, and 1 to 5 pregnancies end in those ways. So yeah, it's common. But let me tell you, no one talks about it. I had no idea that there were those types of like scare factors in the first trimester. All I knew was that you just don't really tell people that you're pregnant in the first trimester because things can happen. But like I never really knew what things could happen. And so if we're gonna say it's common, like we need to talk about it more. And especially as women, we talk about pregnancies and the fears of labor and what can happen in labor and like the scariness of it all, but we never talk about like what actually happens in pregnancy or how we can share that with each other and like really bonding in that first trimester with other women with the fear that this may happen and that like the reality that it could happen and just being more supportive. So instead of saying it's super common, because it doesn't feel that way, even though statistically it has, and like I have, since coming out with my miscarriage story, have met so many women who have experienced loss themselves, but we don't really talk about it. It's something that has a lot of shame, a lot of grief, a lot of guilt, and so we like pack it down. So for like it's so common doesn't really help comfort anyone, right? Because it's not something we talk about happening that much. So a good alternative to that, like if that's something that you want to say or that you believe you're going to say, like a good alternative to that is remembering you're not alone. Just reinforcing that there is a community of people, that there are groups to go to, that there are online communities, that you, your friends, your family are supporting them, and that they're not alone. Because that's a really good way of spinning, like it's common to like we're not downplaying or like devaluing the way they're feeling. So that's like the first one. The second one, I don't have an alternative for, so I'd love to hear if anyone else has an alternative for this one. But I got this question quite a bit, and again, like this video isn't because I'm attacking anyone or feeling offended or anything. I'm just trying to help us have a better dialogue around an uncomfortable conversation, a vulnerable conversation, and that makes the party that has had the miscarriage want to engage with the party that hasn't had the miscarriage, and it's not like a you versus me kind of conversation, or like you don't understand. And so the second one is, do they know what happened? I get it. I ask questions like that in terms of like other things that are happening in people's lives. Like it's, as humans, we want information, we want answers. As humans not experiencing something, we want more information. We want to know what's going on. We are nosy by nature, which is totally fine. Like, I'm sure this is something that I've asked people that they were like, why are you asking me this? Like, I get it. And until I was in this situation, I didn't really understand why. And for me, this question sucks because most of the time you don't get a diagnosis when you have a miscarriage. There is no real way to like look and find out, like unless there's something super, super obvious, they don't know. They can't tell you. And in those moments when you're going through it, their immediate concern, doctors and medical's immediate concern isn't what caused this as much as it's making sure that you're okay, making sure that everything's passing, making sure that you're safe and healthy. And it's not trying to figure out what went wrong. And really, like, if you find out any diagnosis at all, it's usually months after you've experienced the miscarriage. So honestly, it's just a terrible thing to say because it downplays and devalues what they're going through. And as someone who hasn't, like, it's been a year and we still don't know why we've lost 2 pregnancies, like, it's not something we're probably gonna get an answer to. And so it's a lot of a guessing game on this side of things now when it comes to trying different things and adding and taking away things. And so it's just not a fun question to answer or be asked. So let's just not ask it, right? And if you have an alternative to that question, I'd love to hear it because, again, it's a question I have asked regarding other things, and maybe it's just something that needs to be eliminated completely. Maybe there is a good alternative to it. I don't know. The next one is, it wasn't meant to be right now, or it wasn't in God's plan. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. All of those things minimize so much the experience that the person's going through. It's obvious, like, it's gonna happen when it's supposed to happen because it'll be happening. And I get why people, like, why that gives comfort to those who are saying it, but those receiving it aren't being comforted in that moment, right? Like, maybe that's something to say several months down the road, but in real time, it feels like you're downplaying the emotions that that the person's feeling, that I'm feeling, that whomever is feeling them is going through in that time by like putting it on a timeline, right? Like saying like, oh, like, so sorry that you're going through this pain, but it just, that's part of the process. That's part of the plan. That's part of God's plan. That's part of the universe's, like, gift to you. And it's so hard to like take that in real time. Like, it's supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen, or it feels like you're trying to put a timeline on my grief. You're trying to put a timeline on my pain, on when I'm gonna conceive, on when I'll have a child, as if you know. And that's the part that like is just so frustrating when you hear like anything that is relevant, like referencing time, is you feel like other people are aware of the plan or have some control or say over something, and like you don't get it. And so anything that comes with time, like, just is such a sensitive subject. Unless, like, my alternative to this statement is grief has no timeline. Take as much time as you need, and I'm here for you in any way. Like, in that way, you're validating the way they feel. You're validating that it may take weeks, it may take months. It isn't going to be an easy process. But that's the same thing as saying, like, you know, it will happen when it's supposed to happen. Like, take the time that you need is also saying, like, you know, you'll work through grief in your own time. I think for us as humans, it's really hard to understand, like, the grief of a miscarriage because the human wasn't physically here yet. But when you're pregnant, you feel all the feels. And there's this anticipation and excitement that comes with knowing that you're pregnant, whether you feel symptoms or not. Seeing a positive pregnancy test, your mind starts to think of the future. Your mind starts to go towards, how are you going to surprise people? How are you going to tell people? What is your announcement going to look like? What is the nursery going to look like? Is it going to be a boy? Is it going to be a girl? All those thoughts start flooding through your head. So to lose that is a big crash, and there is a grief of something that didn't happen, that anticipation of something that didn't happen. And so to say, like, it will happen when it's supposed to is really, really difficult to hear, especially when it's something that's so terrifying to experience again. So those are the 3 things that I have today. Like I said, let me know if you like this series. Like, I have so many more. I have like a whole list of things that I've been working on, alternatives for them, and talking to people about what they would like to hear, what they would have liked to hear going through a miscarriage, and like what things haven't been helpful at all. And so if you have any thoughts or suggestions to that, please comment them down below. I am so appreciative for you taking time to watch my videos, like, share, comment, whatever you're doing. It means so much to me that you're even here on this journey with me. I really appreciate it. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Talk to you later. Bye!